All right, let's dive in. Today, we're basically becoming financial detectives. We're going to pop open the auditor's toolkit and solve one of the biggest mysteries in the business world.
Think about it. When a company, any company, comes out and says, "We made $1 billion this year," how on earth do we know they're not just making that up? How can we actually trust that number? Well, that is the exact question auditors get paid to answer.
So, where does the investigation even begin? It starts with a concept called management assertions. Now, I know that sounds super technical, right? But it's really just a fancy term for all the promises a company's leadership makes when they publish their financials. They're essentially saying, hey, we swear every single number in this report is legit. And the auditor's job, it's to look right back at them and say, okay, prove it. Now, to test those promises, auditors don't just wing it. They follow a really clear three-step investigation. First, they dig into the company's daily story, all the little things that happen day in and day out. Second, they verify the final count, the big totals at the end of the year. And last but not least, they read all the fine print to make sure the whole story is being told and told clearly. So let's get into step one, checking that daily story. This means auditors are looking at thousands, maybe millions, of individual transactions that happen all year long. We're talking every single sale, every purchase, every paycheck, the whole shebang.
And to do this, they use what's basically a 5-point checklist for every transaction. They ask, first, did this sale actually happen? That's occurrence. Second, was every single thing that happened actually recorded? That's completeness. Third, were the amounts right? Accuracy. Was it recorded in the right time period? That's cutoff. And finally, did they put it in the right bucket, financially speaking? That's classification. Now hang on, because the difference between those first two questions is so important and honestly a little tricky. Occurrence is about looking at the sales on the books and asking, are any of these fake? It's a check for fraud. But completeness is the total opposite. It's looking at all the sales that actually happened and asking, did you forget to record any of these? It's a check for things that are missing. See the difference? One's about fiction, the other's about omission. The other checks are just as critical. Accuracy is simple. Was that sale recorded at the right price? Cutoff is huge at year-end. It makes sure a sale from December 31st isn't sneakily pushed into next year's numbers. And classification? That makes sure when the company fixes a machine, they call it a simple repair expense, not try to pass it off as a valuable new asset. It keeps things honest. Okay, so once the auditor is confident about the day-to-day story, they kind of zoom out. They move to step two, verifying the final count. We're not talking about individual sales anymore. Now we're looking at the big summary numbers on the balance sheet, like what's the total value of all their equipment, all their inventory, and all the debt they owe.
And yep, you guessed it, there's a whole different set of questions for these final numbers. Does this asset actually exist? Is everything that should be included actually included? Is it listed at the right price? And maybe most importantly, does the company actually own it or owe it? And here we go again, with that crucial difference. Existence is the auditor walking into the warehouse, pointing to an item on the list and saying, show it to me. I need to see this truck with my own two eyes. But completeness is the auditor looking at all the trucks in the parking lot and then checking the list to ask, wait a minute, you've got 5 trucks out there. Why are there only 4 on your list? Then there's valuation. The auditor has to ask, is that delivery van really worth 20 grand? Or is that just what you paid for it 5 years ago? And rights and obligations is a big one. Does the company actually hold the title to this building? Or are they just renting? And is that massive loan on the books a real legal obligation they have to pay back? You see, the numbers have to be real, correctly valued, and legally sound. Okay, on to our final step in this whole investigation, reading the fine print. This is where the auditor goes beyond the numbers on the page and really digs into the notes, the disclosures, to make sure the company is telling its full story and telling it clearly. And believe it or not, even the footnotes have their own set of promises to check. Did the events described in these notes actually happen? Are they leaving out any important details? Is this information written in a way that a normal person can actually understand it? And of course, are the numbers mentioned in the notes also accurate and fair? Because really, this final step is all about context. The main numbers might be technically correct, but if they're presented in a super confusing or misleading way, they're basically useless. The auditor's job is to make sure the entire report, numbers and words together, paints a true and fair picture. So, after checking the daily story, verifying the final count, and reading all that fine print,
The investigation is finally over. It's time to put all the pieces of the puzzle together and reach a verdict.
You see, what we've just walked through, all those assertions and questions, they're not just some boring bureaucratic checklist. Each and every question is a building block. Answering them one by one lays the foundation of trust for the entire financial system. It's a huge deal.
And that's really the heart of it all. By methodically testing every single promise that management makes, an auditor can move from a place of professional doubt to one of professional confidence. They can finally stamp their approval and say, yes, this company's financial story is true and fair.
So now you know the playbook. You know the tough questions an auditor asks to make sure the numbers are real. But that kind of just leads to an even bigger question, doesn't it? Once we know the numbers are real, what do those answers truly tell us about how healthy a company really is? Well, that's a whole other story.